Honorable members, I now put the question that the motion be amended by replacing the Honorable Kaikai Bissau MP with Honorable Zamza Mohammed MP, that the motion includes the Honorable Beatrice Elachi and the Honorable Timothy Troitich, MPs both as members of the committee. As men of the opinion say aye. Aye. As men of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Now, you can now contribute.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was saying that this is a historic moment for this country. That today we are passing a motion to create an ad hoc committee that is going to midwife the first amendment to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. It's a situation which I'm likening to what happened in the United States of America immediately after the promulgation of their Constitution in 1786 in Philadelphia, when they realized that they needed to introduce certain liberties, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of association, and so on and so forth. The First Amendment of the Constitution of the U.S. This First Amendment to the Kenyan Constitution is going to be about economic freedoms. Economic freedoms, Mr. Speaker. That for the first time we are going to have the NGCDF, among other funds, entrenched in the Constitution to put a stop with finality on the shenanigans that we have witnessed all this time from busybodies, Mr. Speaker. And therefore I am very delighted that we are having this chance in our lifetime. In our lifetime, to make history, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said about the NGCDF, which I do not wish to belabor. But I want to concur with the Honorable John Mbadi that this ad hoc committee does not need 90 days. We don't have luxury of time. It can do this work and complete it under 30 days, so that we can fast-track this process of entrenching NGCDF, among other funds, in the Constitution. In the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say this, that even as we work towards entrenching NGCDF and these other funds in the Constitution, this is only going to give us a long-term solution. We still need short-term solution to the problem we are facing. And we should not lose sight of the long-term, of the short-term solution, honorable members. The short-term problem we have, which requires a short-term solution, is that we have got no NGCDF funds in the constituency accounts as we speak. And unless something happens, we may not have those funds until next year. God knows which month. So let us deal with this motion as a matter of addressing the long-term problem, whilst at the same time deal with the short-term problem. And I still insist, I wish the Honorable Chair of the NGCDF Committee was here. And I wonder why he can be away. I wonder how the chairman of the NGCDF Committee can be away when we're dealing with such an important motion, touching on his docket. He's consulting. And I hope his vice chair is here and other members. Mr. Speaker, we want the members of the NGCDF who are here and who are listening to me. Members of the NGCDF committee, you are there. You are supposed to have convened a meeting with the CS National Treasury and the Attorney General this week, here. That meeting never happened, for whatever reasons. You owe it to us as a parliament that you should have come back to us to explain to us why the meeting never took place and when it's going to take place. Because in under 2 weeks, without necessarily preempting debate, this House is adjourning for a long recess. So we are facing a serious threat to the future of our own children. I heard Honorable Kimani Chungwa say that he's not sure how the children will go to school on 23rd of January. Mr. Speaker, children will not only have problems reporting on 23rd January to school. There are some of them who have spent a whole third term at home. Mr. Speaker, they are children of poor Kenyans who have spent the whole of this third term at home on account of lack of school fees, which was previously being catered for by the NGCDF. They are facing a situation where they will again not report to school for the first time on 23rd of January. So this is a serious matter, Mr. Speaker. And I suppose and I hope that this House will come up with a solution to address the immediate problem which we are facing, even as we address the long-term problem by entrenching the NGCDF and these other funds in the Constitution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Very well, Leader of Minority. Let's have Honorable Jeanette.
I'll be very short. Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank the Leader of Majority for bringing this important motion so that we can dispense off with this issue of the CDF. Mr. Speaker, this issue of CDF has been occurring as a problem in all the parliaments that I served. Last parliament, Mr. Speaker, we've been having a problem with the issue of CDF. The other parliament, we also had an issue with CDF. And Mr. Speaker, the parliament has made attempts several times to align the CDF with the Constitution, especially after the new Constitution. Attempts were made, and this parliament passed laws that they thought and they believed that CDF now is aligned with the new Constitution. But Mr. Speaker, for strange reasons, I call them strange, very strange reasons, the judiciary found that the CDF is unconstitutional. My only worry is this, Mr. Speaker. I don't want Parliament to go to and engage itself in an exercise in futility. What happens in a situation where this committee goes to all the villages in Kenya, collects the relevant information from the people, and then we enact as Parliament an act of Parliament that now makes CDF constitutional. And then the same people go back to court and again declare the same act unconstitutional, Mr. Speaker, because I foresee it happening. Because this war on CDF, the way I see it, is not legal. This war on CDF has got other things. This war, Mr. Speaker, my thoughts are, Mr. Speaker, this war on CDF does not look legal. This war on CDF looks extra legal, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a fund that has benefited many Kenyans. Many parents have taken their children through school, through secondary school and university using CDF. Classrooms were built in many schools. Police stations were constructed, Mr. Speaker. And all those things are on the ground for people to see. So what makes a Kenyan in his own senses, in his normal sense, to go to court so that CDF can be abolished? Mr. Speaker, some of the reasons you'll be given is that, oh, now we have devolution. We don't need CDF. Mr. Speaker, we have been having CDF, I mean devolution now for the last 10 years in this country. What lives have devolution changed, Mr. Speaker? Devolution has only devolved corruption. Kenyans are suffering. People are crying in all counties. No change in the lives of the people. Mr. Speaker, devolution has not changed the life of Kenyans, unless I'm talking about members. I'm sure you'll agree with me that devolution has not changed the lives of Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. But CDF goes directly to benefit the ordinary citizen, Mr. Speaker, who's on the ground. Mr. Speaker, now with all the failures of devolution, with all the failures of devolution, with no CDF, and for you to get development from the national government, Mr. Speaker, the president must visit your locality. That is the only time you can get development in Kenya. That's how the country has been structured, that you have to wait until he appears in your territory, like the way Jesus is coming back. Then it's when you tell him, oh, the schools are in problems, we have problems of roads. You can see now some of the members trooping from the minority side to government that they are looking for development. Why should you look for development when money is a constitutional right? It's a right for you to, you are paying taxes, Mr. Speaker, like any other Kenyan. You don't have to beg for development. It's a right. It's a constitutional right. For roads to be done in my constituency is a constitutional obligation. Any government that is in place must do roads in my constituency. I don't have to beg for anyone to do roads in my constituency. And I don't have to wait for the president to come to my constituency so that I get development, Mr. Speaker. If that is what it will take me to wait, I will wait. And we'll wait until the cows come home, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this country has moved on. Under the new constitution, Kenyans are empowered constitutionally. You don't have to ask for any favor. You don't have to lick anybody's boots so that you get development in your constituency. Mr. Speaker, this CDF is a constitutional obligation. It's a constitutional right. They are saying it's unconstitutional. But, Mr. Speaker, it is the act that has just been nullified by the courts, Mr. Speaker. I strongly believe that act had aligned CDF completely with the Constitution, because there was no role of the Member of Parliament according to that act, Mr. Speaker. That CDF was being operated by a board. The board is the one that sits with the people in the constituency, and they identify which projects they want done in that constituency. Then the board submits those proposals to the CDF board, and the CDF board now funds those projects, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, you remove CDF. Then you remove, you see the corruption and the lethargy that's in the devolution of this country. Then you expect me to wait until the president comes to my constituents for me to get development. Mr. Speaker, many Kenyans are going to suffer. If we go that way, many children will not go to school. Many children will not be taken to, will not have police stations for security. And I don't know when the president will come to my constituency so that I can ask for development. Mr. Speaker, we cannot suffer. We cannot suffer when we have mechanisms to help our people. When we are the law-making body, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge the committee that has been formed that's being formed through this motion, that they must expedite this matter. 90 days, I know, is what the standing orders have given, that they should report back within 90 days. But, Mr. Speaker, they are also members of this House. They know the urgency of the matter, Mr. Speaker. This is just collection of views from the people. They can divide themselves into groups, and they collect information, and I can tell you, I can promise you today here, that the information that this committee is going to get from the villages, from the people, Mr. Speaker, will be shocking. Because every Kenyan, every village they go, will testify that either my child or my parent or somebody, a relative, must have benefited from CDF in terms of schooling, in terms of roads, and in terms of security, Mr. Speaker. You will see, when this committee starts doing their public hearings, Mr. Speaker, you will be shocked the overwhelming response that this committee will get from the people of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. I wish this kind of public engagements could be done on other funds, including even devolution, Mr. Speaker. If you ask today Kenyans, what are your thoughts on devolution, you will be shocked. The kind of feedback you will get from the Kenyan people. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to belabor the matter, but I want to say, personally myself, I believe that the issue of CDF is not a constitutional issue, it's not a legal issue. This is a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy in the country to fight CDF, Mr. Speaker. And the judiciary is being used to execute that conspiracy. And as you know, the executive will not support it, will not support the CDF, because as of now, with this economic crunch that they are facing, they will be happy every year that they will not be required to send 40 billion, 34 billion to the constituencies. That is money now they can use on other things, Mr. Speaker. You will never see the executive supporting this idea. Politically, they will support. You will see them doing political statements for political posturing, that CDF is an important thing, CDF must be enacted. But in the real sense, let this committee start working. One of the impediments they will face is from the executive, you will see, Mr. Speaker. I can promise you that. You remember in last parliament, Mr. Speaker, it was very difficult funding CDF. We used to get our money, a CDF, like drops of water, Mr. Speaker, like capsules, Mr. Speaker, that the minister has to appear day in, day out in Parliament here, then promises, oh, we will send 1 billion shillings this week, we'll send 2 billion this week. You remember? Mr. Speaker, the executive is not interested in CDF. I know. Don't be cheated. I want to tell my colleagues from the other side, from Kenya Kwanza, don't be cheated. The executive is not in support of CDF. They want members of parliament to be capacitated, members of parliament not to be able to attend to issues that can help their constituents, so that you can go and kneel before them and beg them, and then you raise up your hand like you're talking to Jesus. Mr. Speaker, we know them. We have been here long. And then you wait for the president to come on Sundays, or the deputy president, you start saying, oh, Your Excellency, my school is dilapidated. Oh, my Excellency, our children have not gone. Then he starts giving you 100, 200,000. Then he tells you, oh, mubaki vile vile mulikuwa, Mungu atawagalia siku ingine. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, I contribute.
Very well. Honorable Lilian Gogo, Rangwe. We shall, of course, balance, but for gender purposes, William Gogo, you may proceed. Did I say William? Correction, she is Honorable Lilian Gogo.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker.
Proceed.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this motion that establishes a joint parliamentary assembly, a joint parliamentary ad hoc committee on a legislative proposal to amend the constitution, to entrench specialized funds, and I want to make specific mention, Honorable Speaker, of NGCDF. Honorable Speaker, before I proceed, Honorable Speaker, I probably would want to ask you this, my Honorable Speaker, who is slowly bewitching Kenyans? Honorable Speaker, I have a matter that I'm asking. Who is bewitching Kenyans? Who is slowly bewitching Kenyans to the extent, Honorable Speaker, that we want to put the poor Kenyans and relegate the children of the poor to the back, to the extent that they cannot go to decent schools, to the extent that they cannot have bursary to go to school? Who is bewitching Kenyans, Honorable Speaker? What kind of a nation are we going to have where the children of the poor cannot go to school? And which is this NGO that does not want the children of poor Kenyans to go to school, Honorable Speaker? And may I ask, Honorable Speaker, if you know, Honorable Speaker, the pin of the house of the presiding magistrate or judge, so that I can take 14 school buses of poor students from Rangwe, and then I go and empty it on, empty these children in the house of this particular magistrate or judge, so that they can take these poor children to school. When they have to make certain ruling, do they have empathy? Do they have compassion? Must we belabor on the issue of NGCDF, Honorable Speaker? Do we have to beg on behalf of poor Kenyans, whose poor parents still go ahead and pay taxes, Honorable Speaker? And as far as this matter is concerned, I would urge the committee to move with speed, ban the midnight oil, Honorable Speaker, and bring back a report to this House, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this is a matter of national concern. And my constituents from Rangwe constituency keep calling me, and they are saying, Mheshimiwa tafadhali, please don't remove NGCDF. This is a fund that is known to Kenyans. Even the poorest of the poor, Honorable Speaker, is aware that the only thing that they can lay their hands on, the only development that they see at the ground, what makes their classrooms, what pays bursary for the children of the poor, is the National Government Constituency Development Fund. And it has nothing to do with the MPs. Honorable Speaker, a process has been started. We have a committee in place. But we also need, through your chair, we need a kamukunji of members and the people who are posing this matter. We need a kamukunji, Honorable Speaker. When it comes to matters CDF, Honorable Speaker, We need an equalizer in education. A poor daughter of a poor maid, I could not have stepped in this house, Honorable Speaker, if it were not for the grace of God, Honorable Speaker. And if it were not for education, I would not be speaking in clear English, Honorable Speaker. Why do we want to deny the children of the next generation education? And that notwithstanding, Honorable Speaker, I just hear it is not confirmed. I don't know how true it is, Honorable Speaker, that someone is saying that they are intending to increase school fees in January. Between November and January, where are parents going to get money of that increased school fees, Honorable Speaker? On another note, you hear that the government is not going to fund public universities. On another note, you hear, Honorable Speaker, that NGCDF is unconstitutional. We are going to go as members of National Assembly, people with delegated sovereign authority of the great people of Kenya, to work on this matter, NGCDF, until it's going to be entrenched in law. It is going to be entrenched in our constitution, Honorable Speaker, so that we don't have vagabonds moving around denying the children of poor Kenyans. Children of people, mothers, single mothers. Children, orphans who are abandoned. If it is not for CDF, Honorable Chair, where children, orphans get full bursary, running up to about 53,000. Full bursary so that they can go to school, Honorable Speaker. This is a matter that touches on every legislator on this House. And it is also proposing to entrench other funds. These are funds that are not going to individual pockets, Honorable Speaker. These are funds that are going to the lowest. Ngegu Beach, we are doing a beautiful police station. We have done a beautiful police station in Diru, in Kagan Ward. And we are doing the NGCDF in Rangwe constituency, Honorable Speaker, is making a sub-county headquarters that is even going to have an Uduma center that is going to bring services closer to the people. These people who are against the CDF, why do they want to take us back to the Harambe system to build our schools so that we can go to our knees and beg the executive, Honorable Speaker, to come and build our schools? This particular fund, Honorable Speaker, goes across a constituency, all the 290 of them. When development is happening in Rangwe, it is happening in Wajir, it is happening at the coast. This is a fund that is not discriminative, Honorable Speaker. I am going to say, for purposes of records, Honorable Speaker, that the more we are going to suppress the poor of this country, the more we are going to be cast as a nation. And a time is going to come, Honorable Speaker, when we will go back to God and cry for punishing his poor. And God is a God of the poor. When we continue sitting in the comfort of our beautiful seats in the courts, and we don't even go to our rural homes and see what CDF has done, I am telling these people who are making rulings in the name of the judiciary, go home and see what CDF has done. And when you come back to make your own rulings, honorable members of the judiciary, I think you are going to make different rulings, rulings that are going to be compassionate to our poor. Right now, everybody is following this matter across the country. They want to know what is the fate of CDF, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I started by asking you to tell me kindly, I know in your networks you know where this particular honorable judge lives or magistrate. Kindly give me their PIN. And I'm going to take very many, 14 buses. We have bought school buses, 14 of them in 5 years, using NGCDF. I am going to fill my students of the poor people, take to his home or her home, so that they don't make that grave mistake again on suppressing the poor through the court. Honorable Speaker, Bado, it is my time. When it comes to matters NGCDF, Honorable Speaker, members have said time and again, members have nothing to do with NGCDF. What we want to say, as I finish, let the committee move with speed, give us back a report, and before we go on recess, Honorable Speaker, we need to still discuss this matter further in Akamukunji. But when it comes to CDF, let them leave the children of the poor alone. I thank you.
Well, very well. Every member has 10 minutes, and if a member has content, we have no otherwise but to allow the member to proceed until when the 10 minutes are over. So next to speak on this motion is Honorable Moses Kirima of Imenti Central. Moses Kirima. Imenti Central is in the house. In the absence of Moses Kirima, then we have Robert Pokose and Debes. Dr. proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to the motion as amended. Honorable Speaker, this constitutional amendment brings life, it brings hope, and it sets the stage for saving of educational, academic advancement for the children from the poorest communities, from the poorest parents within our constituencies. Honorable Speaker, we had cases of COVID. When COVID came in, unfortunately, it disrupted the educational cycle. And when it disrupted the educational cycle, it also interfered with our cycle on how we were dispersing the bursaries. And because of that, when now we are recovering from COVID, then we have our judicial system, our courts, creating another roadblock for the education of the poor children in this country who have been benefiting basically from bursaries. When you look at the criteria for the award of bursaries, it is to the poorest children, the orphan, single parent, and from the very poor backgrounds. In my constituency of Endebes, I decided that when you have needy children scoring 360 marks, 350 marks and above, then we should be able to provide them full bursary to cover their education so that it can be one motivation, and many of these children from very poor families perform and excel well. But unfortunately, with the disruption from COVID, and now with the disruption by the judicial system, by our courts, by our judges, giving a very unfavorable ruling on as far as CDF is concerned. CDF is not a default fund. It is a decentralized fund. It is a decentralized fund of the national government. And it is not, the member of parliament has no direct role in CDF. We only provide oversight. And when you provide oversight, I expected that these judges are able to read the law and understand. But because of their activism, they end up hurting other people. And they are hurting many children of this country. It is quite unfair, and I'm hoping that the committee will be able to sit down, and as the Constitution provides that within 90 days, Within 90 days means even in a month's time, that is within the 90 days. They work with speed, make sure that when we come back in February, when we resume from recess, we are able to process this constitutional amendment. We are able to mobilize ourselves, pass it, so that we can entrench National Constituency Development Fund in our constitution. Make sure that we do it right, that we are able to protect this fund, because as it stands now, the fund is in dilemma. But I believe that it cannot, what do we do in the meantime? Because this bill is going to take long to be able to be worked on. What do we do in the meantime? I'm asking the chair of the departmental committee on CDF that he calls the CS Treasury, calls the Attorney General. We sit here. We still have undispersed funds. Let those funds be dispersed. This House has passed the committee on CDF. It is going to be cassetted. What is the committee going to do for the meantime? Let's disperse the funds. The CS Treasury should be able to disperse the funds to the board. The board should be able to disperse the funds to the constituency. And the constituency, we should be able to prepare that when children are opening in January, they are able to go to school. Even these ones who are sitting for their KCPE, KCSE, joining to the university, KCPE, sitting to do going to join Form 1. We have even the grade 6 who are going to junior high school. Where are the classrooms if we can't be able to build with this? The president of this country has publicly and in this House acknowledged that he supports the CDF, which is a good thing. And I think the rest of the executive should support the president to make sure that CDF is actualized and is made to be able to deliver on the services, especially bursary, construction of classrooms, construction of the offices of the chiefs and assistant chiefs. I saw the other day our CS for Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, visiting Kilifi and saying that we need to put money to put offices for the assistant chiefs, offices for the chiefs, and make sure that everything, the provincial administration are working in a good environment. That can only be actualized through CDF. So, Honorable Speaker, to me, I think we need to have action plan that before we break for our recess, we need to have a kamkunji in this House, through you, the Speaker, that the CS and the Attorney General, who happens to have been the former Speaker of this House, should be able to move with speed, come here to this House, let's have the CDF actualized, let's have it running as we do the amendment. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to give others also time to be able to contribute. I support.
Honorable Member Joshua Mwalio, Masinga constituency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this chance to speak on the NGCDF. Having been a member of the NGCDF for 5 years in last term, and even this time I have been placed in the same committee, I am conversant on the CDF matters. And I think this is a great moment that we are debating about the release of the CDF and also the under committee that has been able to be passed in this House to be able to work on entrenching the NGCDF in the Constitution. You remember that last year we had the same exercise of putting 5% in the NGCDF so that it can be the percentage that is allocated from 2.5%. And the committee of NGCDF was able to move around all the 47 counties for 30 days. So even this under committee can be able to move and collect the views of the public within that stipulated time so that we can be able to entrench this in the Constitution. We move on. Having said that, it is very important for the judges to know that there are poor students, poor pupils, poor total orphans that are only sponsored by CDF, and they cannot be able to go to school unless the check comes from the office of the fund manager for them to attend school. It has been a very hard term, this third term, that we have not been able to dish out the checks for NGCDF for the students to be able to learn. Majority of the students are at home as we are speaking, because in some parts of this country, there is famine, there is no food. So are you going to look for school fees or you are going to feed the children? So many of the parents have opted for the children to stay at home rather than them selling their cows for paying the school fees, but rather for them to buy food for the family. So it is a very sad affair that we have famine and we have no school fees. So what I would urge this House is to be united together. The House should be in oneness as we call for the Kamukunji, for the CS Treasury and the AG to come and be able to convince them that we need a percentage, because if the students who are not able to go to school this third term, it means they are going to repeat the class they were going next year because they did not do the exam. So we don't want to punish our children. Even a notice is normally given, even if you are going to be given a bad notice, plus to be given a bad notice, you need a notice. Even if it is a notice of 5 years, we should have been given by the courts that after this term, we shall stop the NGCDF, rather than just putting the brakes. All the students that were fully sponsored by NGCDF, they stay home. All the university students that are sponsored by NCDF, they stay home. So I would like to urge this honorable House to unite and be able to ask, even if it's for the first quarter of the NGCDF, to be released to every constituency so that we can deal with the matter that is pressing us of school fees and taking the students even to Form 1, others to the university, others to the next classes. So I think everybody will come to his own senses that surely the thing that this country is going through is not the best, because we are not doing justice to our students, to our children, wherever they are, because they are used to the members of this House trying to give them the bursaries in their schools. Number two, we will have a lot of waste if NGCDF is not released, because there are so many projects that we are going on. There will be no value for money because there will be stored projects all over this country. So the best thing is for the NGCDF to be released so that we complete all these projects and we continue the way we have been continuing. If I give an example, my constituency, the only project is seen in that constituency is the money that comes from the NGCDF. Whatever comes from the county government is actually cannot be seen. For the last 5 years, only 5 boreholes were done in my constituency, which is very negligible compared to whatever was able to be done by NGCDF. So my argument will be, let us be released the NGCDF so that life can be smooth the way it has been for our students, for our projects, and for everybody that depends on NGCDF funds. For those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support the ad hoc committee.
Very well. Honorable Florence Machia. Next. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to say I want to support this motion on the floor on matters NGCDF. I want to speak and echo my colleagues who have spoken before me that the petitioner should have taken time and understand the importance and the benefits of CDF. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, I come from a very humble background, and those days we used to be helped and supported by organizations like Children Fund, that is CCF, USAID, to go to school. And I was privileged to have schooled in a boarding school at an early stage of my life. And due to that, I was able to get a better education, and that is why I am here today. What CDF is trying to do is to bridge the gap that was there and gives opportunity to poor children from poor backgrounds. Also, CDF has also complemented a lot of development, right from the national level and the county level. As one of the members have said, Honorable, because I've said these are decentralized funds. And the best people, and history have proven right that politicians, as much as they are elected, are good managers because they understand and they get in contact to the people day in, day out. And so CDF have proven that with their good management by members of parliament, under the decentralized funds and regulation of government, it has been able to take care and cater for many projects and help many people, especially children going to school, to be able to live their lives like any other Kenyans, or Kenyans of better status. I want to also add and say that I have seen in the recent times how CDF have done. It has built police stations. It has bridged the gap or curb the openings in the society that the national government are not been able to do it in time. Because when a member of parliament interacts with the people, he can easily relate to the problems that people go through day in, day out. And that way, even the orphans or children who are going to school and are not able, are able to be picked. Widows have been beneficiaries through the CDF in terms of bursaries. We also have the NGCF, NGAF. This is also some of the funds that have also been contentious of late. And we want to ask our counterparts in the judiciary that they should also consider that we are all working for Kenyans. As much as I've been elected, but I am giving service to the national and the people of Kenya in all regards. And that way, when I get an opportunity like this, I want to ask the petitioner who did this to relook again and go and do his or her due diligence and understand that CDF is not fighting anyone. In fact, it is entrenching the services more better to the people of Kenya. Suffice that, Mr. Speaker, there are also problems. Like I come from Baringo where there's a lot of banditry. And many times when we discuss about all these things, we are told there are children who are not going to school in those areas of specifically Tiati. And I want to say there are other areas that CDF is not utilized well. And this one, probably going forward, as a Member of Parliament, Baringo County, I have noted with a lot of concerns that there are areas in my county that don't utilize CDF because those are places you don't see schools that have been built, probably. You don't also see those police stations. You don't see the effect because at the end of the day, as much as many other members, because the other day, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro took members of parliament to his constituency to showcase what CDF has done. I want to say I have a problem in that part of my county that CDF is not effective enough because we have stories that CDF is doing other things like, supporting banditry, probably, maybe buying guns, or because it has been in the records, or encouraging people by not developing the place. And I am going to, as much as I'm supporting CDF, there are things we also need to understand that some leaders don't utilize CDF the way it's supposed to be done.
Yes, Honorable Millie, what's your point of order? Honorable Millie, what's your point of order? Give Honorable Millie the microphone.
Oh,
please.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even though I don't wish to interrupt my very good friend, Honorable Florence, but is she in order to mislead this House that CDF is used to buy guns and things like that? When indeed, because when you actually say you are supporting CDF and furthering fallacies about CDF, then you're actually setting up Kenyans against CDF. CDF has a very clear structure and a clear system that nobody can buy guns with CDF. So is she in order to mislead this House? And I would want to encourage that maybe one of the things, I wish I could also have sought for a point of information, then I would be able to inform her clearly how CDF works. But perhaps another member could do that. But you are really out of order, misleading the country about what CDF can do or not do.
Thank you.
Order, Honorable Florence. Really, this is a house of records, and it's very important that when you pronounce yourself on certain matters, especially weighty as they are, you really must be able to substantiate. So therefore, proceed, but really stick on issues that you are able to substantiate.
Standing guided, Mr. Speaker. But as I said the utilization in other areas. That one I stand guided. And going forward, Mr. Speaker, I want to say for sure CDF has done its bit. I have seen projects, but I would also encourage that even as we fight for CDF to come back, and it's going to come, and GAF too, that we are going to be appreciative if the society understands that CDF is actually important like any other part of government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Next is the Honorable Adan Haji, Mandera West. Is Adan Haji in the House? Adan Haji. Okay, in the absence of Adan Haji, next is Honorable Joanna Ngeno. Proceed, Joanna Ngeno.
Thank you, Speaker. I really don't want to delve so much on this particular topic, Mr. Speaker, because many of us have conversed it on several occasions. And especially at a time when the kitty has been halted by the courts the courts who, I believe, never properly or never understood the major intention of the activists who went to court. Mr. Speaker, sometimes you wonder why Kenyan people question matters which are, or which goes to the main artery of the poor population, and leave matters that are actually destroying the country completely. There has been a lot of corruption in this country in the previous years, corruption that have eaten into the core of this country. But no one is going to court about it. There has been so many people in this country who have stolen billions and trillions of money, Mr. Speaker, and they are walking in the streets scot-free. And no one is actually looking at how we can arrest those people, make them pay the money they have eaten from this country, Mr. Speaker. There has been people in this country, Mr. Speaker, who have made it a responsibility to waste whatever is in any government ministry, Mr. Speaker, and they are not even going to court about it. Why are they questioning a small amount of money that has been allocated to the poorest of the poor in the society? Mr. Speaker, I remember there were so many schools in this country, Mr. Speaker, which were mad schools, which were actually, had mad walls. There are so many students in our country, Mr. Speaker, especially the countryside, who studied inside dilapidated classrooms. I'm one of those, Mr. Speaker, who, when I was young, I studied in a classroom where I think every other week I had not less than 10 jiggers on my fingers, Mr. Speaker. Today it is history because of the introduction of CDF. Mr. Speaker, I don't know why some people have never understood the reason why CDF was introduced in this country. Mr. Speaker, there were days in this country where parents used to sell land to educate their children. So many people lost land. So many people lost their cows because they had to sell to educate their children. There were days, Mr. Speaker, when children used to defer their university classes because they could not manage to pay the fees. There were days, Mr. Speaker, in this country where people died on their way to hospitals because there were no roads. People die on the roadsides because the road is not there. Maybe it is a very rainy season. People are being carried by gunias to the hospitals. There were days, Mr. Speaker, when we used to have children named Kipto, Kibor. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because they were born on the roadsides. Because the hospitals were not there. Because the roads were not good. Mr. Speaker, this is history. It is no longer there. I don't understand, Mr. Speaker, why we are fighting over something which is going towards assisting the people of this country. Why is our country and many African countries are backward? It's because people do concentrate on matters that do not matter, that are not important to the development of the society. Instead of vigilating on billions of money which is being spent anyhow, carelessly, people are vigilating on money that is helping the poor in this country. Instead of arresting big corrupt individuals, we are fighting over small allocations to the poor. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to say much. I just want to say it is the responsibility of this House so that we will not also be whining day and night. Article 95, Article 94, Mr. Speaker, and Article 96 give this House the powers to legislate, to make any law in this country, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is now our responsibility to ensure that we amend the Constitution, entrench the CDF and GCDF in the Constitution, so that even the generations, it may not even be for the current generation, Mr. Speaker, but we also need to be, to ensure that the next generations benefit from the amendment of this Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Law was created to help man, not the other way around. Law was not created, man was not created to help laws. Laws were created to help men and women. Mr. Speaker, that is why we are in this house. We are in this house to amend the law. That law was meant to help us. And if there are some sections in that particular constitution which are not helpful to the humanity, Mr. Speaker, it is our responsibility to amend it. And I'm urging members, let us stop whining. Let us put our efforts on the amendment of this particular constitution. The committee, the ad hoc committee, which has been picked, Mr. Speaker, I'm only urging them, just do your responsibilities, even in 30 days, but ensure you go to every village, every corner in this country. Ask the people, what do they want with this allocation? If they want it removed, then bring it here. We will remove it. If they want it entrenched in the Constitution, bring it here. We will entrench it in the Constitution. And whoever wants to court, whoever wants to go to court, they can go to court, any court in this country. But we must entrench CDF in the Constitution, just like we entrench the devolution in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support, and I'm asking the members who are going to do the public participation, ensure that you also follow the law. Just like what the Speaker was ruling on the other minute, that we must follow the law in the composition of that ad hoc committee. We also must follow the law in the public participation and collecting views from Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I support and I wish to support. Thank you.
Honorable Milius Yamboma Bona, the MP for Suba North, Senior Counsel. The requests we have here are over 22, and we have barely 55 minutes to go. So if you can put in your point and save time for colleagues, it would be even better so that we are all at.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll try and be brief so that other members can also get an opportunity. Mr. Speaker, while we are discussing here, I've noticed one of my friends on Facebook called Mtumishi Koroso is asking why the discussion on NGCDF by members of parliament is very emotive. In fact, he has made a reference to Lillian and saying Honorable Lillian Gogo, why she's very emotive. And I want to say that the reason why this is emotive is because we deal directly with members of the public, and like him, he deals with people on Facebook, but we deal directly with members of the public. Mr. Speaker, I can actually cite a case in my own constituency where people used to ask me to contribute to funerals, and I'd give very little, sometimes at most 500, but usually only 3,000 shillings. And at one point, actually, somebody asked somebody, why should I be giving such little money that will not help? But then I actually underwent a transformative situation that made me realize that that little money to me means the whole world to somebody. Mr. Speaker, I was actually told to visit a home where a woman had died the night before in Rusinga Island on Gumba Hills. And when I went there, I found that the body had been there for a day. It was covered by a net that was donated by UNICEF because they were not able to provide any preservative. They were not able to afford a coffin, even of 3,000 shillings. Mr. Speaker, they were not able to take this body to the morgue. The woman had 3 children, and these are the only people who are surviving even in the larger family. She had 3 children. The eldest was 14 years old. Mr. Speaker, I think a lot of us do not understand the kind of situations that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. We are dealing with the desperately poor people who cannot raise 3,000 shillings to bury. People who cannot raise 500 shillings to buy unga. And you want to, argue with us on Facebook. Sometimes these posh Kenyans on Facebook, sometimes when they find me in a good mood, I abuse them. When I'm in a bad mood, I block them. Because they need to go back to the ground and discover what Kenya is all about. Because CDF has helped so many people and continues to help. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I even interrupted my good friend, Honorable Florence, when she was speaking, is that the challenge we have in relation to CDF is a lot of misinformation. A lot of people think that as a member of parliament, you just go to your constituency and say, give me 1 million there for CDF. Nobody is going to give you any money. CDF has a board, which is in Nairobi. That board is the one that actually then sets up a committee, which is passed in parliament, and then they set up and hire people that then work for CDF. maybe members may actually, the way we do even have influence over appointment of PSS and other people, we may put in a word, and that is normal in life. But on the whole, CDF is one of the best structured and best managed funds in the whole country. And I want to encourage the organization called TISA, that sometimes those of us who come from civil society, we are very genuinely accused of being elitist, because sometimes we are. I come from a civil society background, and we need to understand that sometimes we are elitist. That's why people don't take us seriously. Go back home and understand how CDF is transforming lives. Right now, because the money for CDF has delayed, there are so many people in our own constituencies that have dropped out of universities that have not gone. There are some that we are forced right now to sponsor. There is a boy that I've sponsored from a place called Lusao who deferred his university degree, medical degree, last term, last season. Again, he's deferring this time. I had to get money from my own pocket. How many people can members of parliament sponsor from their own pockets? So, Mr. Speaker, it reached a point where I had to say, I can't do anymore. But CDF does that to individuals that are suffering like that. As members of parliament, we can give recommendations when you see situations like that. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that I would want to say is when this committee is finally constituted, what I would want to encourage them to look at very carefully is the principle of separation of powers and how they are going to deal with it in the amendment. Because if we do not look at it carefully, the way we are looking at the issue of separation of powers, then the issue of the basic structure concept, which I so dislike, might just rear its ugly head again. So I would want to encourage members who, once this passes, that they need to look at it and also look at it vis-a-vis the principles and values that are contained in Chapter 10 of our Constitution, that talks about equity, that talks about non-discrimination, that talks about fairness. Where is the fairness when poor people are suffering, and then we want to argue? I want to thank Honorable Lillian that she was very emotive and she was saying, who has cursed Kenyans? It is not Kenyans. I want to ask, who is cursing Africans? When something good finally happens in Africa, then us in Kenya, we want to kill it. Everywhere I go, in every country, I used to be a member of Pan-African Parliament. I interact with several members from other African countries. People want to know how we are managing CDF. Zambia is doing very well with it, and perhaps only Kenya. And everybody else wants to see, because it's transforming lives. Mr. Speaker, I almost called names, but let me withdraw. Let it go inside. But Mr. Speaker, you have people who do not understand what's going on. And they're asking you, why should you have CDF? Mr. Speaker, what used to happen is once that CDF, when we didn't have CDF, what used to happen is that honorable members of parliament would be queuing at the executive, asking for money. Now I don't have to go and queue anywhere to ask for money. Then it gives us the power and authority to be able to deal as honorable members. Even as opposition, I can deal without going to line and queue anywhere. It gives me my independence. And Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude and even encourage my good friend Alice. I know she was out last time, so she doesn't know. I'm actually exercising my own gratitude, or not gratitude, my fairness, to cede my time, because it is not by law. So I'm actually rushing. If you notice, I'm actually rushing. So I'm actually ceding my time so that you can also have time. But in concluding, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that as members, it doesn't matter whether you are in UDA, whether you are in ODM. If you don't have CDF, you are going home early in the morning, because your people will have no confidence in you, whether we are giving it out or not. Let us have a kamkunji before we go, and we want to tell the executive, release the money for CDF, otherwise you'll deal with the wrath of the members of this house. Let the president learn what Honorable Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta did not learn last time. The way he dealt with the members of parliament cost him a lot. So we want to tell this president, if he's joking, he will deal with our wrath across the board. With those few remarks, I want to support and urge these members not to spare anything or anyone. Thank you.
Is the chair of the National Assembly Select Committee on CDF in the House? Contribute and when you do that.
We can't hear you, Chair.
Yeah, I was asking whether the chair of the National Assembly Select Committee, so there is a problem. The speaker's mic is not working. I'm now audible. Yes, so as you contribute, Honorable Musa Sirma, also explain to the nation why CDF has not been disbursed.
Replying because I'll be replying.
Yeah, so when you reply, tell the House why CDF has not been disbursed.
Yes.
Because so far as I'm aware, that there is no order or anything stopping disbursement of CDF. Yeah, if we are a serious house, we should not just be crying as if we don't have to, nothing to do. Honorable Beatrice Elachi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support, but more importantly, to thank the leadership, both the majority leader and the minority, for ensuring now that this committee is indeed incomplete and within our guidelines of our standing orders. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I just want to pick on so that I contribute very fast and say that, as you say, Mr. Speaker, I think the House should first of all proceed to continue to do what they need to do and ensure disbursement of CDF is done, because the ruling of the Supreme Court was a ruling that was dealt with the CDF Act of 2013. And therefore, the President of the Supreme Court assumes that what she dealt with was that. Indeed, she has no idea about 2015, because nobody has ever gone about even the amendments, further amendments of 2022. And so we will be even wrong ourselves. Maybe we are just putting ourselves into a crisis where she was never in that crisis. And therefore, as we constitute this committee, because our first stop must be in her office so that she explains and we are able to understand, I think CDF should continue. Because what she dealt with was 2013. Mr. Speaker, I have been in schools today. I will tell you, our children, when you look at those who are going to do exams, I have one school, 800 candidates. Standard 8, 420. Year 6, 400, I don't know, and 2. And in total, we are talking of 20,000 in one constituency. Yet we have other kids, Mr. Speaker, who are now at home. Some were supposed to be doing Form 4. They were under CDF bursary. They've been sent home because there's no money. Yet we are saying as a country, education is the key and the future and everything. We are lying to our children. We are lying to the country. Then you find the former CS of education who decided to do desks. Even the desks were never enough, Mr. Speaker. I think each school was getting 50. And CDF, if CDF was to do for you desks, every school, today I contributed 200 for 6 schools. But if it was CDF, all the schools would have gotten. And you look at the way we are dealing with this matter, and yet some children are going to now, you wait and see they have closed school. You wait and see in the streets, Mr. Speaker. We will be crying for our children. Yet we have decided completely, CDF used to come up with programs to at least have sports. We would be having sports for our children when they close school. For 2 months, we have nothing to give these children, and therefore the children in the urban towns will be in town, even them. They will be roaming in the roads of Nairobi, all over, because they don't have any place to go and do indoor or even football or even any other games that can keep them busy in the next 2 months. Mr. Speaker, I think when we are going to collect views, we must take a petition to the judiciary. The judiciary to tell them, these are our children. Tell us what you want to do with Kenya. You want to kill Kenya? And then where are you going to get the future judges, future lawyers? I mean, it's very unfair. When you look at the national government, they have no program even for a classroom, and yet we are about to transit to year 6, going to junior high school, and to others going to another. I think, Mr. Speaker, so that I finalize, so that others contribute, I think it is very unfair to see that you have a transition of a a whole education system transiting into something that we don't know. How are we going to ensure these children indeed are in junior high school? They have classrooms. Their parents are wondering, I have a child in standard 8, another one in standard 6. Where am I headed with them? Will they afford? And therefore, when you look at the school fees, and this is the final, the uniform. Today, uniform in Kenya, if you are supporting one child, you are told by the school, you either find it in the school, and if the school doesn't have, they tell you where the shop is. I think the ministry and the minister must ensure he puts a cap. You cannot buy a uniform, 23,000 uniform. No shoes, no nothing, just uniform, no beddings. Mr. Speaker, I beg to say this House must be very serious, and we must put a cap also on uniforms, and we must open up that parents can go to Kenya School of Uniform to also get uniform. I beg to support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this discussion. Mr. Speaker, it's very quite unfortunate that this afternoon we are spending all this time debating about only 2.5% of the ordinary revenue of the government of Kenya. 97.5%, Mr. Speaker, is going to do other projects and do other things in this republic. But this money, only 2.5% of the ordinary revenue, is what Kenyans are able to see trickle down, quote unquote, if I use that word, to every household in this republic. Honorable members here have talked about success stories of bursaries. Mr. Speaker, I am here courtesy of CDF bursary. Because when I did my KCPE in 2001 and qualified to go to secondary school, being a child of a single mother, there was no money to take me to school. And it was then the Member of Parliament for Molo, one Mukiri Masharia, that my grandfather, may his soul rest in peace, approached him and asked him to support me. And the 4 years I went to Kieni Mixed Day Secondary School, I was supported through Molo Constituency Development Fund. And that's how I was able to complete my secondary school, join Kenyatta University, and that's why I am here today as a second-term Member of Parliament, as a chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning. That would never have happened if there was no CDF. I probably would just be looking after goats and sheep in my remote village of Mukinyai in Molo. Mr. Speaker, this is so personal to me that in 2017, when I decided to vie to be a Member of Parliament for Molo, I found myself vying against the Honorable Mukiri Masharia, who educated me through high school and university. And it was very tricky for me. And I remember one time we met at a function. The only words I would say is, you took me to school and told me I'm the leaders of tomorrow, but tomorrow has now come. And I think that is how I was able to convince that multitude to vote for that 28-year-old man and not to that experienced lawyer. And even to this date, he's somebody I talk to, he's someone I really respect, and he has been a great mentor to me in my life. So, Mr. Speaker, the success of CDF has many of us as examples, myself included. And how unfair would it be if we don't extend this olive branch to the millions of poor Kenyans in this country, Mr. Speaker? A lot has been advanced about CDF and the control of members of parliament. But Mr. Speaker, let me inform those uninformed judicial officers that we have a fund that is run through KERA, the 22% and the 10%. And the only role of a member of parliament is forwarding or recommending members of the Constituency Roads Committee. And then the Constituency Roads Committee just drew up a program of how the roads are going to be done in the constituency. And this, Honorable Speaker, can be seen as what has been an equalizer in doing our constituency roads. So if you're saying then that 22%, the 10% Kerala roads can do our roads in the constituency, and you claim then a member of parliament is not involved, and you're saying that this one is unconstitutional because there is involvement of a member of parliament, aren't you double speaking? So, Mr. Speaker, I really urge these judicial officers. You might be children of rich men and women in this country. You might have gone to privileged institutions. Most of you pride yourself in calling yourself learned friends because you went to the Massachusetts and the Oxfords of this world. Many poor Kenyans would never afford or imagine going to those schools. They school in those dilapidated classrooms, primary schools and secondary schools. And if they're not given CDF, those schools will never have the correct infrastructure to produce the next lawyers or judicial officers in this country, Mr. Speaker. We are talking about the importance of the fund to the constituents. But let me introduce a new concept, the importance of that fund to the National Constituency Development Fund Board. Because you have a whole board in this country with an infrastructure, with a total of 391 employees that are directly employed by the board. We have an average of 6 employees employed in each of the 290 constituencies, which is an additional 1,740 Kenyans. So you add to the 391 of the board, you have 2,111 Kenyans that are going to lose their jobs if this action by this court is implemented. Mr. Speaker, just the employees at the board contribute 19,827,376 shillings as payee, which amounts to 234 million shillings, 928,310 million shillings per year in terms of paying, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Need I remind you I'm a CPA, Honorable Zachary Thuku. So this means that if this decision is carried forward, we are going to render 2,111 Kenyans jobless, and from our coffers, we are going to lose 19 million per month, which accumulates to 237 million shillings per year, Mr. Speaker. Because I want to give an opportunity to others to contribute. My last point. The reason why our elections are extremely competitive and end up being very divisive is because there is a strong belief that you need to be part of government to get development in your constituencies and your counties. And this is true. Because, Mr. Speaker, we have a total of 160,000, for example, kilometers of roads in this country. And even if the government would be so gracious as to do 1,000 kilometers per year, in 5 years, they only do 5,000 kilometers. So it will take another 20 years to do only the 160,000 kilometers of road. That is why, Mr. Speaker, you see when the president or the deputy president visits our constituencies, you are quick to tell them which road can be done, because it is factually not possible to have any criteria to ensure that you have that development skewed proportionately across the country. So, Mr. Speaker, if not for anything else, the Honorable Kuria Kimani is just here at the floor of this House, courtesy of CDF. And I'll pray and hope that we will provide this chance to millions of other Kenyans. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable John Waluke is back to the House. Give him a chance to talk.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm back. I've been away for a very long time, and I want to speak about CDF, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, CDF is the most cost-effective fund, Mr. Speaker. It has changed lives from the poor children, the poor families. Mr. Speaker, because some could not afford to take their children to school, even as we speak. We are having a problem of hunger, even in Turkana. But CDF, Mr. Speaker, was managing to take their kids to school, even with those problems. Mr. Speaker, as I speak here, as a member of parliament for Sirisia constituency, Mr. Speaker, I caught my constituency with 91 primary schools. And almost all of them, Mr. Speaker, were mud wall, Mr. Speaker. And we used to smear. The children used to carry some cows' feces to smear the classrooms, Mr. Speaker. But now we have managed, Mr. Speaker, I have managed to almost, with the CDF committee, to bring up almost 68 schools afresh, permanent, courtesy of CDF, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, people who are instigating to remove CDF, Mr. Speaker, sometimes you think that they are not normal. Because it is seen. Today, Mr. Speaker, I was so proud on this road, the Uhuru Highway, where I saw the passes, Mr. Speaker, about 28 passes, they were just passing. And I even told my podcasts and my drivers that, look at those passes. And there are people outside there who are saying that CDF should be removed, Mr. Speaker. 8 of them, Mr. Speaker, are fully funded by CDF. And I was very proud as a member of parliament. Mr. Speaker, the poor children from poor families, where we come from, Mr. Speaker, have really benefited because some of them, Mr. Speaker, have been given full bursary. Like in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, every year I sponsor full bursary for 61 students, private students from poor families, to give them full scholarship. And this is, Mr. Speaker, without CDF, NGCDF, Mr. Speaker, those children could not make it to go to even high schools or universities, but some of them, Mr. Speaker, or many of them have gone through to the universities, courtesy of CDF. Every time, Mr. Speaker, we have been having problems as a house, as a country. We blame ourselves as members of parliament, Mr. Speaker, because we are the lawmakers. And, Mr. Speaker, where we have failed, because 3 terms I've been in this house, Mr. Speaker, this problem of CDF has been occurring every term. That is a problem of CDF, that they have removed the CDF, and we are the lawmakers, Mr. Speaker. This is now the time, and let it be the last time, Mr. Speaker, for us as a house to make sure that we amend the laws. We change and amend the laws in the Constitution that allow CDF money to be used here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this money is taxpayers' money. And those poor women in the rural, Mr. Speaker, and poor men are the taxpayers. So their children are supposed to learn. They are supposed to go to school, Mr. Speaker. And being taxpayer, this money is not, we are there just to manage. Even Treasury manages this money for these people, these poor women, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it has taken long because many children have come back home. They have not gone to school due to lack of school fees, because CDF is not there, because bursary is not there. But with the committee that has been constituted today, Mr. Speaker, it needs to hurry up. I know they are going to take long going around the whole country, Mr. Speaker, getting public participation. But, Mr. Speaker, when they come back, Treasury should release billions of money, because they have been saving money on their account for CDF, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, there will be no complaint for them to say that the court stopped CDF bursary or CDF. Mr. Speaker, this is their time almost from last year, I mean from the time we went to elections up to date. Mr. Speaker, they have got enough money and enough time to make sure that the money should be released with immediate effect, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many countries have come to this country, Mr. Speaker, to our country to learn how we use CDF. How can CDF be used? Because they hear that Kenya have a fund called CDF. Lastly, before we went to elections, I saw Uganda were here, members of parliament from Uganda, to come and to learn, to see how CDF is utilized. So we are proud, Mr. Speaker, because maybe in Africa, it is Kenya that started this fund of CDF, and other countries are learning from us. So we need to continue, not that they come to learn from us here, and then we remove ours. We cannot blame the courts, the judiciary, Mr. Speaker, because these cases were taken to them. The NGOs that did this, I think God will punish them, because these poor children at home, they are crying, not going to school. These poor families, the mothers, poor mothers home there, they are crying that their children are home. I saw those people, Mr. Speaker, they were still even arguing that they were going to remove even CDF. They are shameless. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for today. Because of time, let me donate my time to another colleague to contribute. I support.
Thank you very much, Honorable John Waluke. Your wisdom was missed. We wish you well and pray they don't mess up with your liberty again. Honorable John Kawanjiku.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity so that I can contribute to such great, important matters of our republic and the matter that concern the people that we represent. Mr. Speaker, may I take this opportunity to say that, first of all, the NGO that took the matter to court, and also the judges that made that ruling on that particular time, it is actually against, I'm even looking for better words to describe them, because I think they live in an illusional world whereby they don't understand whatever happens to the common mwananchi in our constituency. Mr. Speaker, let me say that because I came to this house through a by-election, and I was able to support 8,000 students within a period of 1 year, to give them bursaries so that they can be able to see the doors of high school, because they were not able to raise the school fees that were demanded by their public secondary school. Mr. Speaker, in the country that we are living, even to raise 100 shillings so that you can be able to support your family with a daily bread it is becoming an issue in our country today. So this bursary and this NGCDF came in handy. Some of the people who are able to be members of this house, they have been able to be here because of the bursaries that were given by their CDF and through their members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, it will look bad on us if we can only be able to fund our children to go to high school and other public schools, but the children of our poor people, peasants, watu ambao, those people who are not able to raise the school fees, cannot be able to go to school because of a judgment that was made by a judge sitting in Kilimani or Milimani High Court without putting into consideration what those people will go through. We have already received millions of calls by now, people asking us when we are going to disperse our bursary because they have not been able to maintain their children in high school. Mr. Speaker, the things that we have been able to do through NGCDF, even coming up with new high schools in my constituency. For example, as we speak, there is a high school that we are constructing because of the numbers of students who are in public primary school, and we need 100% transition from public primary school to public high school. We have constructed new high schools to give those children opportunity to learn so they can also become better people in our society. Through CDF, we have been able to reduce the number of people or probably people without employment because some could not have managed to get employment because of lack of education, Mr. Speaker. May I say that we must come together as a house regardless of which political side you come from, whether in Azimio, whether in Kenya Kwanza, and support one agenda and make sure that the CS for Treasury, by now, or probably before we go to recess, he will have released the money for the CDF so that we can be able to plan and make sure that those students and other projects that are ongoing in our constituency have been able to be fully functional. We have been able to support them and we make sure that we maintain those students in our school, in our public school. Mr. Speaker, let me say that CDF has been a good fund that has been managed very well. We have seen our constituencies that have done exemptionally well by making sure they renovate their public schools, giving the students a better opportunity to learn and better environment so that we can be able to make sure that we have 100% transition from public primary to public secondary school, and then maybe after from public high school, probably to university, and make sure we give them an opportunity to become better people within our society. Mr. Speaker, I therefore stand and support this ad hoc committee, and we demand that through your office, Mr. Speaker, before we go to recess, you make sure that we have a Kamukonji, so that you make sure that the CS for Finance, the Attorney General, and the members can deliberate on this matter, and at the end of the day, we can be able to unlock whatever is a problem, whatever has been an issue, so that we can, by the time we go back to, by the time we are going for recess, we can also be able to action and support those students who are looking up to us to provide for them bursary and to make sure that they're in public, that they're in school, so that they can support their future and so that they can support their family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Alice Nganga, MP, Thika Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this important matter pertaining to CDF. Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sorry, Mr. Speaker. I came back to this house.
When did you change the gender?
No, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. My bit is because I'm a madam, I'm assuming, sorry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know we were together in the duration of 2013-2017, and I never came back for the 12th Parliament, and I am back here, the 13th Parliament. And I want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, I am here courtesy of CDF because of the bursaries that I awarded those students from Thika constituency. Mr. Speaker, right now as we speak, my offices has bulk of forms of bursaries because most of the students never even resumed back to school this term because of lack of school fees. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, I built, when I was a member of parliament, a divisional headquarters, police divisional headquarters in a place called Goriba. And the level, that time, the level of insecurity, there was so much insecurity in that area. Right now, among all my wards, that is the only wards, the security matters is not a problem anymore. As we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, I think the people who went to court, that NGO, I think they are Aryans, they don't live in Kenya. Because if they do live in Kenya, they should have experienced what parents are going through. And I think people assume that CDF belongs to member of parliament, like we use this money as we wish. What they don't understand is a board that assigns those projects to be undertaken at our constituency levels. And that is why I am saying, Mr. Speaker, that we need to discuss this matter without fearing anybody. Because as we speak right now, every member of parliament, we have our own money. We are employed by our by Parliamentary Service Commission, but we were hired by the members of our constituency. Right now, as we have our salary, but those people who we represent, they have nothing. We know right now that our country is experiencing a hunger. There's no food, leave alone money to take children to school. And if we sit down here lamenting and crying without having a way forward, we are the ones who are going to lose. The people who really believed in us, the people who brought us to this house are suffering back at home. And that is why I'm saying we cannot go back home. We are going for a recess. What are we taking back home? What are we going to tell the people who send us to come to this parliament? What are we going to tell them? That there is somebody somewhere seated who doesn't want to release this money. They will not understand because they gave us all the power. Remember, we are representative of the people who elected us, and that is why we are here. Now going back home to tell them there's somebody seated somewhere who went to court so that the money cannot be released, they will not understand. And that's why I'm saying, even, I know we have an ad hoc committee that has been formed today, but moving forward, as the entire, across the house, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, we need to come together. Make sure that this matter, we discuss it. Whoever we need to bring on board, the Attorney General, the Cabinet Secretary, we need to bring them on board, and they explain to us the reason as to why money has not hit the accounts at the CDF level to make sure that programs start running. You know, the parents are going for a long holiday, the Christmas holiday, and they are looking forward in January to taking their children back to school. Now, why are we giving them stress that the children now are at home, they close school, apart from the class 8 and grade 6 and Form 4s who are sitting for the exams. The rest are already at home. What are we going to tell these parents when they are taking this grade 6 to grade 7 and this class 8 to Form 1 and those ones who are in Form 4 when they'll be joining the university? That we tell them there is no money only because the Cabinet Secretary for Finance Treasury has not released the money. They need to release the money, and then we say here at the floor of the house, Kesi Badai. Let us case that case already when the money is already at the constituency level. But we cannot sit here debating, and we are not taking any action to make sure that our CDF money is at the constituency level. And because of those people who don't understand, I need to inform them that as for the projects that we do with CDF, it is the board that come up with those projects, and they fund those projects. We are only patrons to this money. We are only there to assist and to foresee that everything is running smoothly at our constituency level. And we also need to inform them that nowhere at any given time does the member of parliament come into hand or touch these funds. Our work is only to go there, make sure that the bursaries are awarded to those vulnerable children from our constituencies, or we are building police posts and divisional headquarters, or starting a new school like I started Thika Girls Karibaribi, that I started with only 80 students, and as we speak today, we have 1,000 students, and right now as we're speaking, 250 are sitting for the exam, from 4 exams. That is what CDF does to this country. If you move across from one constituency to another, either you are in central Kenya, or you are in western, or you're in Coast Province, or in northeastern province, if you go there, you will see a mark. And you know, with this CDF, every project that we do, there's a big board there saying that this project was undertaken by CDF. So those people who are seated somewhere who think they can run to court and deny the Kenyan people the opportunity to be given services by the members of parliament, they are wrong, and we are not going to condone them. We are telling them, waachane na sisi, sisi tunataka watoto wasome, sisi tunataka kujenga mashule, sisi tunataka kununua madawati, sisi tunataka kuweka, we want also to make sure that we have dining halls in our schools. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity, and I pray before we break on 2nd of December that we are sitting down to make sure that this CDF, we were given 3 months. 3 months can also be 2 weeks. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity.
Honorable Ukume Adepo, on account of disability, MP for Karachuonyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, I must say that sometimes the debate going on in this country is confusing people. You hear all the time people talking of CDF being outlawed by the court. That is true, and nobody is contesting that. But then people don't differentiate between CDF and NGCDF. Even in this honorable house, when I was listening to the debate, a number of times people referred to CDF, which is non-existent. But I know in the house we know we are just shortening the NGCDF to replace it with CDF for the sake of time. But otherwise, when we talk of NGCDF, there is no problem with CDF. No court has ever given any judgment against NGCDF. Judgment was against CDF. I think this needs to be made clear. It is made worse by the Treasury, which made a statement that they were referring the case to the AG as to whether they should release the funds or not. There is no issue to refer to AG. I think this needs to be very clear. And that being the case, that there is no issue to refer to AG. And again, there is no issue whatsoever, legal or otherwise, against the release of NGCDF. Treasury should take their responsibility and make immediate payment, because our children are suffering. The Kenyan children are not going to school. Mr. Speaker, let me just remind you of what you know, that we have gone through a hard time when COVID-19 attacked the nation and the schools were all closed. They came back 2021 and they progressed with their education up to sometime this year. But then from August, when they started the term, which I think is the last one for the year, they were again not able to get any money to pay fees. The mothers, the fathers are crying. I wish any of these people delaying the payment could know how much tears women shed and their husbands as well. In fact, it's pathetic. Every day, and I'm sure all the MPs here go through the same process, every day you get not requests, but you get cry. People are crying that their children are staying with them. If you see somebody crying for the future of his or her child, know that that person is in a problem. Yes, we are soon going for recess. I don't know how we are going to find ourselves in an area where everybody comes to you crying. Some of them bring 2, 3 children, telling you that these children did not go to school. Are they going to remain home again when the year starts?
Order, Honorable Andrew Adipo. I'm told that the time has come for the mover to reply under the standing orders. Regrettably. Mover.
I oblige, Honourable Speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Mover. Mover.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to reply, but before I reply, I would like to give 2 minutes of my time to Cynthia Muge, Women Rep for Nandi, Betty Maina of Moranga, 2 minutes, Omar Mwinyi, yeah, 2 minutes, Ivo Bara, 2 minutes, and Ferdinand Wanyonyi. Two minutes. Okay, so yes, turn down. So start.
So, Honorable Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and Honorable Sirma for the opportunity to make a comment in regards to the ADO committee that has been proposed to be formed for purposes of looking into the CDF, the NGAF, and the other empowerment funds. Honorable Speaker, I stand in support of the said ADO committee. It should have happened earlier, Honorable Speaker. Like honorable members have spoken to the issue, we are in pains to explain why there's no NGAF in circulation to pay school fees for children, school-going children. We are at pains to explain why CDF is not yet here for it to pay school fees for children. Honorable Speaker, I was moved when I went to pass my condolences in a village called Cheptarit in my home, Honorable Speaker, and I found a member who used to serve in CDF, and the member by the name Reverend Tello said that this woman has 6 kids in school, and all these kids, 3 of them were under full scholarship of CDF, but they were all at home, Honorable Speaker, because the CDF money has not been released, and therefore the schools could not admit written commitments to the same, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I just want to say that for anyone out there who thinks that CDF and GAF and the empowerment funds, Honorable Speaker, are not important, I want to tell them that they are as important as the breath that everyone takes, Honorable Speaker. They are important for those children and those people who depend on it to be able to school and to be able to have good facilities. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this motion and I urge the honorable members to support it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Betty Maina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute to this motion. I want to stand and make a very deliberate comment that most of the members of parliament in this house are parents who are capable of paying their children's school fees without struggle. Their salary can support, and their ventures are not one bottom trusted. When we talk about CDF and GAF, we are here as ambassadors of the most vulnerable people in our societies. Children who depend on us and children who look upon us. Mr. Speaker, in the month of October, I have been able to donate part of my salary to parents in dire need of school fees because children are just about to do exams and they do not have money. Mr. Speaker, may I wish to say that when we talk about NGAF and women empowerment, we are not empowering the richest women in this republic, but we are empowering the women in Mashinani who are in dire need of money to even start to get capital for even the smallest business. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about administration blocks, we are talking about blocks that are archaic, old, and we are trying to bring up new facilities for our people who elected us. I wish to say, Mr. Speaker, We are the voice to the voiceless. We are the people supporting the most vulnerable, and we are the bridge between the government facilities and our voters. I wish to support this, and I want to tell the people who are opposing this, they should be more philanthropic, visit their villages, and know how people suffer to access these facilities. Thank you.
Honorable Omar Mwinyi, also known as Simba Tena.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want this House to know that we are not debating about CDF on our own behalf. We are actually representing the voices of our people in the constituents. They are the ones who are yearning for CDF, not the MPs. Mr. Speaker, if people want to believe that CDF is the only thing that makes members of parliament to be re-elected, it is also, the statistics are there, that almost 70% of members of parliament normally get voted out, despite the fact that CDF is there. So that should not actually be a matter to be considered. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, CDF has taught people about public participation, real public participation. It has also ensured equitable distribution of resources in this country. If other countries in Africa, like Zambia, sometimes in 2015, they came here to benchmark after we introduced this idea to them. Tanzania as well. So I think if an idea is good, then it should actually be allowed to proceed. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I was looking forward to have inter-county sports, because sports in our country is actually dying out because of the FKF politics. But I'm sure if CDF is given more funds, we can have inter-county games, and perhaps this would actually ensure that our youth will be encouraged to participate in sports and perhaps become stars in the making. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me that opportunity.
The Honorable Dr. Ivo Bara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and may I too add my voice to support the establishment of the ad hoc committee to go across the country and collect views from the people of Kenya on CDF and eventually entrenching it in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the benefits of CDF cannot be understated. What we have had here today are success stories of what CDF has done in the different areas of this country, ranging from nurseries, infrastructure development, such as laboratories, classrooms, name it. It is all about CDF. We have people in this room, MPs in this room, who have benefited from CDF, and they have given testimonies that they would not have gone to school had it not been for CDF. Thank you very much. I support once again, and thank you very much, Chairman, for giving me your 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, lastly, Honorable Abraham Kirwa for 2 minutes.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity that you've given me to just contribute also to this ad hoc committee that is actually going to be going around the country to get views. I am in support, Mr. Speaker, for 2 reasons. One, actually CDF or NGCDF makes a difference in the lives of many, many Kenyans, especially in my constituency. I can tell you almost a half of the students who go to school depend on the bursaries from NGCDF. So by not allowing NGCDF to continue, that means most of the families will not afford to send students to school. So I'm asking those people who are behind these court cases, withdraw these court cases for the sake of this country. It is not helping anybody. It is not for the best interest of the country. Let's withdraw those cases, release the funds for the CDF so that we can continue to meet the needs of most of our Kenyans because they depend on this NGCDF. So yes, I support this motion.
Move as you respond to the question I'd asked.
Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to give a reply on this motion. Mr. Speaker, it has been deliberated on and really debated by members who are really active, and the interest of CDF in this country can never be overemphasized. It is the mainstay of every constituency, because without CDF, there would be no development. In fact, CDF is the equalizer of all developments in this country, because whether you are in government or not, you are going to get funding. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, activists in this country have gone beyond and gone overboard. Some of them are trying to play the role Okia Omtata was doing and thinking that they will be senators like Okia. So I think it is time that they know that it is not activism which will develop this country. We need patriots in this country so that we can have a good country in terms of development. Mr. Speaker, as we go, as I am one of the members who are served in this house without CDF, in the 1997-2002 term, Mr. Speaker, we sold our properties, we gave everything we had so that our people could give us another chance to run, because we were paying or doing harambes for schools, funerals, and even bursaries to all schools. So I can assure you, this has brought, and it is a real change in terms of development in this country. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the development of CBC, as has been mentioned by many, nobody even talks about the wrong or the bad structures which has been put up by the Ministry of Education. Nobody even thinks or have a second opinion on it. They will just say, Serikali, the government has done it. And I want to say that we are being looked at so seriously, and we deliver, because it is good. It is good for you as a member to do it. Mr. Speaker, as you asked why the CDF has not been dispersed, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, I want to give notice and summon the CS of Treasury and the Attorney General next week to this chamber, so that every member can ventilate on issues touching on CDF, and then they should tell us what legal minds do they have which is different from Kenyans. The Supreme Court have gone ahead to do the wrong thing. And I think it is time also we need to punish them, Mr. Speaker, by actually denying them funding. Because why do they think that they are the only people who are supposed to get funding? Mr. Speaker, I think we need an all bipartisan approach in all matters in this country. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support and move and reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Musa Sirma. I know how passionate you are. Several members are disappointed they did not have a chance to speak on this matter. But as the motion states, this matter is going to involve a lot of public participation, which will require even your views. I regret and unregister my apologies for the members who never got the chance, and I thank you for your patience. Because the House is not queried, the question on the motion will be put the next time it will be scheduled by the House Business Committee, and the House will be sitting. Order, members. Honorable members, and the time being 5 minutes past 7 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Thursday, the 24th day of November 2022 at 2:30
p.m.